Hi, my name is Dr. Tova Fuller. I'm Vice President of San Francisco Bay PSR, that's Physicians for Social Responsibility. And tonight I'm joined by Dr. Bob Dodge. Dr. Bob Dodge, can you describe yourself in a sentence or two?
Sure. Again, I'm a family physician practicing in Ventura, California, and I'm currently in my 40th year of practice.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so Dr. Dodge, do you know anything about nuclear weapons?
I do know something about nuclear weapons. This is an area that I've been concerned about for my entire practice, and actually started back when I was in college at the University of Colorado as a molecular biology major. We were studying some of the effects of radionuclides on the human genome. So that started my passion, which really kicked off then with the birth of my first child. So I'm also, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a doctor, but I'm also a father, which is really where that really engenders my concern.
Yeah, wonderful. So you must have some favorite facts about nuclear weapons.
I do. Number one, my fact is they exist still. You know, it's interesting how many people think, well, that was went away with the Cold War. It certainly did not. They still have approximately 13,400 nuclear weapons shared fairly equally between the United States and Russia, and then seven other countries have a very small number. My favorite fact is that these are something that we have designed and built and that hold our very survival by their existence on this planet. And the fact is we can destroy them and get rid of them. That's probably my favorite fact, that we can eliminate them.
So that would probably free up some money if we were to get rid of nuclear weapons. And I'm kind of wondering if you might be able to give us some figures or like a sense of magnitude.
Yes. So the cost of nuclear weapons, and when I talk about the cost, you know, I can't help but distinguish or separate the monetary costs from the humanitarian costs. But we'll start with the monetary cost. The United States this year, 2020, will spend for our fiscal year $67.6 billion on nuclear weapons. That amounts to about $128,000 a minute, okay, on nuclear weapons. Weapons that can never be used, must never be used, and once again, hold our very survival at risk by their existence.
It's impressive. It's very impressive. So here's a question for you now. You've been doing activism on nuclear weapons for decades, and you are driven in part by the fact that you are a doctor. So that begs the question: what is the intersection between the two?
Yes. So again, I'm a primary care physician. So in primary care, one of the most important things I can do for my patients, which starts at the birth, because I see from babies to their great grandparents, is preventative aspects. So whether that be a diet and activity and weight control and immunizations for prevention, well, the greatest threat to our humanity every moment of every day is the threat of nuclear war and death therein. So I look at the abolition of nuclear weapons as my prescription for survival. It's a very real extent of my day-to-day practice for my community, but as I look at the larger human community. So it's a prescription for survival.
Okay, wonderful. And on the subject of prophylaxis, I have a feeling if I ask you this, that the answer could be potentially quite long. But I was going to ask you to very briefly say what is back from the brink and how is that related to prevention?
Yes. Back from the Brink is an amazing grassroots um, movement that's sweeping across the United States. Very briefly, in 2017, the United Nations embarked on, it's called the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. That treaty to prohibit nuclear weapons, like all other weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, biologic weapons, and landmines, once enacted, will actually make nuclear weapons illegal to have, to hold, to possess, to develop, to fund, to transfer, to stockpile. And so we know that once that treaty passes, which is likely to happen this year, 2020, it will go into effect and be international law 90 days later. Will nuclear weapons be gone at that point? No, they will not. But the nuclear nine nations, of which the United States and Russia are by far the greatest offenders, will now be stigmatized internationally for their possession of illegal and immoral weapons. So again, in the United States, we've known since the treaty was enacted that, you know, the United States would not sign. So many of the nuclear nations have developed a grassroots movement. And the grassroots movement in this country, of which there are many facets, like a quilt, if you will, but the one that probably has the largest growth right now is called Back from the Brink, moving us back from the brink of nuclear war. So that that movement, which anybody it can endorse at preventnuclearwar.org, supports the treaty. Okay, it removes the United States from first launch, that we will launch before we're attacked. It takes away the sole discretion of any president, our current sitting president or any future president, from launching nuclear war unilaterally. It takes our weapons off hair trigger alert. And finally, it says we're not going to spend $1.7 trillion of our treasure over the next 30 years to build out an entire new enhanced nuclear weapon arsenal. So those are the 5 points, and they're critical preventative processes while the treaty is being enacted.
Awesome. Yeah. You know, that figure you just threw out, I think you said 1.7 trillion.
Yes.
I had always seen 1 trillion. This is always surprising me, the numbers you're able to find.
Yes. So the current, and again, so what happens, as in everything, whether it's the car you're buying this year that you could have bought 5 years ago, or your home or your apartment, whatever, the price escalates. So currently, per the Congressional Budget Office, the planned expenditure over the next 30 years with inflation, with cost run-ups, is now estimated to be 1.7 trillion.
Okay. All right. Just wrapping up, I only have a few more questions. I'm wondering who your favorite nuclear abolitionist is and why.
That's an interesting question. You know, having done this for so long, I've come in contact with so many wonderful people around the world. And actually, that gives me great hope, because there are so many people doing this. And it's one of those things, even in a very overwhelming at times process, it's hopeful to work with such wonderful people. But it's interesting. I have for years said probably my favorite anti-nuclear person was Carl Sagan, again, who at Cornell. And I'd heard Carl Sagan say, he was a major, again, abolitionist. And he said, you know, I'm going to do everything in my power to abolish these weapons. But he said, but if someday over my shoulder, there's a nuclear cloud causing the apocalypse, he says, I can go to my death knowing that I did everything in my power to abolish these weapons. And that just was profound and stayed with me forever. You know, and what I tell people, we all have a role to play in bringing forth a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. And it's not necessarily a big role or necessarily a small role, it's our role. And with this information that you and I are talking about, every one of us must act. Doing nothing is not an option if we really want to save the future.
I love how impassioned you get. This is wonderful. And I'm wondering, just 2 last questions. What is the most important thing in the world to you?
The most important thing in the world to me is my family and the future that I envision for them. And so I, you know, again, as a father, as a scientist, as a doctor, it is my responsibility to do everything I can to leave them a world, okay? Because right now I feel responsible for the world that we do live in. And so to me, that's the most important thing.
And a related question, by your estimate, what is the most important thing that we can do to prevent nuclear war?
Right now, I think the most important thing, I think, in the United States is to let your voice be heard, and beyond voting in this critical year. I think that endorsing Back from the Brink, which now has 343 organizations like Sierra Club, like 350.org, like Soka Gakkai, like every major religious organization, every major scientific. So that it has, we have 47 cities, of which my city of Ojai was the second in the nation to start, and 6 state legislative bodies. But individuals are encouraged to endorse and push their legislators to do so. The old adage is, when the people lead, the leaders will follow. So I think that is the most important thing. And that's also encapsulated in the most important thing we can do is abolish nuclear weapons. And we have the power if we have the will.
Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom, Dr. Dodge. I really appreciate it, and have a great night.
Thank you so much.